Well, it's not just stocks that rally back this afternoon. Bitcoin prices are back above $37,000 after falling below $34,000 for the first time since July earlier today. Our next guest joins us to break this down. Noelle Atchison is Genesis Trading Head of Market Insights and joins us now. Noelle, you pointed out that Bitcoin's 30-day correlation with the S&P 500 has continued to increase and just recently reached the highest level since July 2020, whereas Bitcoin's correlation with gold is now only about 15%. For investors, what does this mean in terms of how to use Bitcoin in a portfolio and balance out risks from other investments?
That's a really good question, Emily, and hi, great to be with you. I do have to say that everything I say is my opinion, not that of my employers, and of course, as usual, nothing I say is investment advice. But that question, Emily, the difference between the correlation of Bitcoin with the S&P 500 and the correlation with gold, when Bitcoin is supposed to be digital gold, comes to the very crux of what we're seeing in the market. We're seeing two very different Bitcoin worlds. The price moves that we've been seeing over the past few weeks are macro-driven. Investors are treating Bitcoin as a risk asset, but here's the thing, all of the selling, well, most of the selling is coming from short-term holders. In other words, traders, short-term retail perhaps that don't have a high conviction, but also macro investors that are treating Bitcoin as a risk asset, other cryptocurrencies as well. Therefore, it behaves like one when they are running to safety. This does not take away from the fact that there's still a lot of accumulation going on. Long-term holders have been accumulating Bitcoin steadily for months now. 75% of Bitcoin is held in what are known as illiquid addresses. The amount of Bitcoin that hasn't moved in over a year is almost 60%. And those are the holders. The majority of Bitcoin out there belongs to holders who do see Bitcoin as a longer term store of value, who do see it as digital gold. Only that's not what is moving the price. Therefore, that's not what we see in the correlation.
So as we catch our breath and we try to slow down to see what's actually happening here, you pointed out that there's a metric that those in the crypto world would probably understand very well, but help us who aren't necessarily, at your level, understand what spend output profit ratio means when it comes to Bitcoin in particular.
I love this number because I'm a total nerd, and the fact that we get to see data on chain in a transparent fashion that gives us deep insight into investor sentiment and behavior. This is something that investors in traditional assets, when they understand this, I mean, you literally can see their heads explode. SOPR, that you're asking about, Adam, is a metric that tells us whether investors are selling at a profit or at a loss. And this is really exciting, it can be split into long-term holders and short-term holders. Long-term holders, when they're selling at a profit. Short-term holders, no surprise, they are selling at a loss. And the loss at which they are willing to sell is increasing. This is a signal of what we would call capitulation, which is also a sign that support is on its way.
I'm wondering, as we take a look at Bitcoin prices today, as I was mentioning in my intro, they are up during afternoon trading, but they are still down by essentially half from their November highs. I'm wondering, what does sentiment actually look like among traders right now, and what do you think that indicates about the near-term price action we should be expecting?
That's a very good question. It's any kind of rally will take it. Let's face it, this relief rally that we're getting is indeed very good news, but stepping back a bit, too soon to tell. We could see the short-term sellers that I was just referring to take this brief rally as a sign, yay, now I can get out of even more at a slightly higher price had I continued to sell lower. It could be the turnaround. I have mentioned also that support has been building, but to be honest, as long as there is so much uncertainty overhang in the market, and as long as markets generally are waiting to see what comes out of the FOMC meeting on Wednesday, as well as what's going to happen to inflation, not to mention economic growth in the leading economies, I think we're in for some choppy times.
Why would those long-term holders who are sitting on their crypto assets not have taken what we witnessed, because it's always trading, taken advantage of the lows we saw? Wasn't this an ideal time to jump in, especially if you're a long-term player in this?
We're seeing that. We are seeing long-term holders, according to the on-chain data, continue their accumulation. There was a very, very slight dip over the weekend, but minuscule. We're seeing long-term holding continue. It's been increasing steadily for the past few months, and this does signal conviction from those that fully understand the potential.
What catalysts do you think Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency investors should really be looking for this year? Because it seems like some of the known unknowns, at least, are coming from Fed policy, coming from regulation, coming from